Hey guys, it's Sarah from Northern Michigan Soap Company. Today I'm going to be making our lilac soap, and I'm going to be using the lilac fragrance oil from Nature's Garden Candles. I'll put the link in the description below. This fragrance oil is actually one of the most difficult ones I've ever worked with. It accelerates trace extremely fast, so I can never get our soap to look the same 2 times in a row. So I went ahead and got the butters and oils down to temperature after melting them, and I got the lye solution mixed together, and that is down to temp, so we are ready to get mixing. I'm going to be adding in the lye solution here, and I'm going to be pouring it along the side of the pan, and that will help prevent some air bubbles getting into the soap. We don't want that. And I like to tap my stick blender on the bottom of the pan, or some people may call it burping it. And that helps release the air bubbles from the stick blender, because we don't want, again, the air in our soap. And now I'm going to mix the oils and the lye water together, and bringing those together is called emulsification. This is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to speed it up for you. And all the micas that we're going to be using today, I have them all from Nurture Soap. And this one is the Purple Vibrance, and you can see it's a real deep purple color, and it has a little bit of a shimmer to it. The green that I'm using today is called Alpine Green, and that again is from Nurture Soap. And this one is one of my favorite darker green colors, and it too has a shimmer to it. And then for the white, I'm going to be using Winter White Mica. And again, it has like a pearly sheen to it. Not going to be using too much today, but usually I use titanium dioxide, and that one has a tendency in this recipe to cause glycerin rivers, and I'm going to try and get away from that and see what happens, but it's really up to the fragrance. I like to mix the colors, each with 1 teaspoon of mica per 1 tablespoon of oil. And I mix it together using my mini mixer, which I absolutely love. And you can see the sheen in the color. And we'll do the same for the purple and the green. Now that the micas are dispersed in the oil, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some of my soap batter in and get that mixed together. And this white here is my base color, and I'm going to be pouring some soap batter into the color instead of just pouring the color into the soap. Now, a lot of soap makers like to add their base color straight to the pot of batter. I like to add my soap to the cup of color, because I found that when I stir it all together and then pour it into the big pot, then it helps reduce the amount of clumps of mica that I have in the finished product. Alright guys, the stick blender is not the best option for this just because there's not enough soap in this little container, so it's causing a little bit of air bubbles. So I am going to switch to my handy dandy little mini mixer, which is probably the best choice for this. And I'll put a link to the mini mixer that I'm using in the description below. Okay guys, it's time. I have everything set aside and ready to go. So now I can add the fragrance oil. And this is gonna be a little bit tricky. As I add it in, I'm gonna have to not use the stick blender and just stir it by hand, because really this fragrance oil only allows me about 15 seconds or so before it starts to get thick. So if I want things to turn out correctly, then I need to do it all by hand. And as I hand stir, I can feel it starting to get thick. So I'm just adding a little bit at a time so I can make sure that I can mix the fragrance oil in well, because we really don't want to have pockets of fragrance oil in our finished project. You can probably see now that it's starting to get thick. I don't know if it's picking it up on camera, but it's really turning into like a thicker pancake batter or a thicker pudding. And that makes it really hard for any sort of swirl to happen when I start adding in the other colors. Because the soap is setting up so quickly, I'm only going to pour half the mold full, and then I'm going to add some color so I can hope to get a good swirl. Otherwise, if I add the color all last, it probably wouldn't sink down far enough in the soap to be able to have color in the middle of the bars. And the technique that I'm going to be using is just like a drop swirl or an in the mold pour. As I pour it in, I'm just going to take my little sticky stick that I have. What is that called? A dowel rod, a bamboo dowel rod. I think it's made by Wilton. I just use that and I swirl them around, and that way I can get the color swirled the way that I want. So I'm going to scrape out the remaining soap that's in the pot, and I'm going to put it right on top to try and help break up some of the color. I'm going to firmly tap down the molds on the tabletop, and any air bubbles that might be in there should be able to rise to the surface and come out. Now for the top, I'm just using a stainless steel spoon, and I'm just mounding the soap up a little bit to give the top some texture. So now that the soaps are done, I'm going to just turn my oven light on, and I'm going to put both loaves in, and I'm just going to let them sit. The light in there should be just enough to keep it warmer so they can hit gel phase, and then I'll come back and get them 18 to 24 hours. Now my soaps usually don't have a big problem with getting a lot of ash, but for whatever reason this fragrance oil always makes the soap super ashy. So all I have to do is I have to run it under some hot steaming water, and then this dull look will start to brighten right up. This is my favorite way to get rid of soda ash, and it's just with the hot tap water. So I just turn it on and then make sure it's hot to the touch, and then I can start putting the loaves right underneath the water. You can see it just brightens it right up, and it washes all that soda ash away. And then I just let the water drip right out, and then I'll set it aside to let them dry. Now this technique doesn't normally work with other types of soap tops. If I use like a melt and pour embed to put on top, or if there's something such as flower petals or glitter that you don't want to put under the water because it'll just wash it all away, that has to be used with another technique. Now that I've let the soaps sit for a couple hours to get good and dry, now it's time for the fun part to start. We're going to cut the soaps and see what the swirl turned out to look like. Guys, it turned out so pretty. I am so happy with the way that it turned out. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. And if you liked this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe. And you see that little bell, you click that bell and you'll get all the notifications for when we have new videos coming out. Now all the equipment and things that I used today, I'll go ahead and link in the description. And all the ones that are from Amazon.com, I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you buy through my link, then it won't cost you anything, but I will get a commission for referring that to you. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you guys so much for coming out and watching this today, and we'll see you next time.